Hi there, this is Nilson Lima, and you're just here to show you guys progress on the Cloudscape seasons 1.5 and some other news. And last video I have shown you guys the rain system, which was a work in progress. Now we have basically the system entirely working, and I'm calling it a system because it is completely um, see detached from Cloudscape seasons, and you can uh, have the Cloudscape seasons without it, or you can include it just dropping a blueprint on the on your scene. And there is a couple of things that we implemented. It is far from what you guys saw last time. So first things first, let's put some clouds here. Um, so we're going to increase our coverage to 1. So we got more clouds here. And and the things that we have implemented is last time I showed you how the ground is wet when it got running. Right now we are going to no rain uh, to the flood settings, and each setting is kept for 3 seconds, and the time to going from one state to another type of rain is another 3 seconds. So um, you see that the rain will progress as the times goes by. The ground becomes wet, and what we have included here in our scene is um, like you see that we put this block here, and you see that below it uh, it's dry, completely dry, and you can see how here in the shadow the wet part and the dry part can be seen. And another thing that we made, I will show how we can make this part here, is like this glass. You see there are some droplets, some water streaks coming down. Uh, the heavier is the rain, faster the droplets and the streaks gets down. And another thing that we made, I have to show down there. You are far from finishing showing this. And right here, we have this block covering the water, and see uh, again that is no rain coming through. And at the lake, you can see the droppings coming on the water, so you can see the and and this is completely masked by this um, right there. The same thing here. So the idea here is I have included the material functions that you can add to our landscape materials to mask the dry areas, and it will also the in case in the droplets in the water here, that is also material function to make them. It includes the masking using the same texture. And this is all fine. So now I saw, okay, we got some pretty damn heavy rain down here, but this is not quite what happens when you got some heavy rain. You know, I thought, hey, when that is because right now we are doing this with the rain falling just for where the character is. Everything else is simulated. Uh, so how we can make like a fog, it is caused, and also diminishing the light while the rain is becoming heavier. So based on the amount of drops, I can control the luminosity from the skylight and from the directional light, it is now the sun, and at night the moon. And I also have a way to control. So you see the light intensities, I can control it. So I just place here the original values and how is the amount I want to reduce it at uh, the, the maximum amount of raindrops. This is all mapped from 1 to 0. So in this case, the intensities is the original intensities for the light. So if you enable this, you see this happening. And I also have made two controls for fog. One control, you can have an exponential high fog. It is mapped here and place it in the level. It you can use to make the fog. So there is some couple things here which are values that I think are good for trying out fog. And I also have made a fog using a cloud layer. So you have to or use these settings here or just pick new ones, and you have to set each cloud layer is the one to make the clouds appear as the fog layer. So the layer 1 is this clouds you are seeing here. So I have placed the fog in the layer 2. And I will show if this because this is the I would not do this. I use first the height fog so you guys can see the difference. The good for using exponential high fog is the volumetric fog is barely inexpensive. So you guys see when the rain starts to get heavier, so I start to increase the fog that is drawn pretty close to the character, and you completely dark out the areas following the horizon line. So right now, you can see the fog is already activating, so you can see the colors are starting to get dark at distance because I'm using a dark color for the fog. So you can see, like looking at this mountain, that at the bottom is darker than at the top because the fog is forming more at the ground because all the wider. Though right now the fog is more intense as the rain is. It is good for performance, but the volumetric fog is sort of distorts a little bit the color for the clouds. So you might need to during runtime change that color a little bit. Uh, and since we have some gaps between the clouds, we could like control that as well with some changes. And I say, well, its look is okay. So we have the lighting diminished, so we can see a darker light because we have too much rain falling. Um, Falling at distance, we have a rain fog, so if you can call it that way. And And I say, okay, but usually when we have a really heavy rain, it's almost impossible to see even the details in the sky like we can see here. And as the exponential high fog is something that is closest to the ground, so I can't affect that much. See, if I have a rain like this, it's supposed to be a flood. I can still see some part of the sun. I can see through the clouds. So the second layer, so I will disable here exponential high fog and use the second layer for the clouds to do the same. So there we go again. We expect a little bit um, for the amount of drops increase to the flood level. And we are just looking at any moment. I think I did something wrong. Okay. There is a chance for the rain not happen. So you have to wait more. If I don't have drops, um, I can have the fog. So as our timings are too short, so you see quite an aggressive increase of the fog, but it's because the time in between the changes in the amount of drops falling is too short. So if you interpolate this uh, above 30 seconds instead of 3, you have smooth. Um, so you see, using the second layer, now it really looks like we got a rain fog. It covers not only the ground but the tops as well, and you can see now we barely can see the sun and the space between the clouds as well. So this is really great for a ground fog. So depending on the performance you have in the computer you are running, maybe you can use the volumetric fog. If it's a low spec machine, even a higher spec machine, you can use the second layer. Um, the taxing is not that much because as we are losing details for the terrain beyond, um, and this gives us back the performance we lose controlling a second cloud layer. So it's not bad at all. So now we really have here um, the fog, and I say, oh, that is okay. Now we have rain fog. This is absolutely amazing. But we are far from having something realistic. So I decided to, okay, I will make some lighting, and I have posted videos in the Discord channel about how complex is the shape of the clouds and also the shapes we have for the lightning depending on the weather. And as you guys remember, um, there are differences in how the lighting forms when it drops down. You can see like that uh, roof from a tree roof can you can describe it as well, or branches of a tree. And then when it hits the ground or hits another cloud, it comes back in a single line. So I say, okay, I will model this. So I to make our system a little bit more complete, I modeled 8 different shapes of rays falling, and the same shape each matches the previous one. So this main streak here matches the main streak here. So we have this being shutting down, and this one goes up. And everything, like if you see this, it makes all these curves here, it matches with all of this. And we have increased quite a lot the amount of textures we have from previously. I have improved the moon textures as well. And let's now make this lightning go. And that is something that just clear this fog here. So you can enable or disable the light. Let's enable it here. You can give a probability for the lightness to occur. And I have separated the types of rays you can have. So we can have rays at tall targets, short targets, ground. Overall, the remain will be the sky. An update interval, it can be used to reduce the amount of variability. If I place this like 60 seconds, no ray, no matter if this is 100%, no ray will be cast in a minute period. Okay, so now there is a 70% chance that at each 2 seconds a ray will be cast. And not only this, we can also check each individual type of target to occur. So we can make it simultaneously or just one of them. So you can have just one at the sky. This is good for performance because, as you guys can see, it's not that much, but if you are enabling flashing, like we are now, the flashing, it's like consuming. I am planning still to take another look at this before releasing because I think it's taxing too much. The flashing is when your ray falls, it illuminates a large area. In these guys, this is computing by CPU and not GPU. And this is why the performance is too taxing. I have seen enabling too many rays at a time. The frame rates coming down from 120 coming down to 65. So about half because we got too many rays casting light over the terrain, and this light must be shone. So that's why also I have placed a way for you to disable them if you don't want. And no further ado, let's see how the rays look like. We will show this with fog. Maybe you guys can see how it is with fog. Now I have placed lots of targets and places in the sky where the rays will be cast. So you guys can see. And you'll see that the flashing is also enabled. So this one just hit the ground. That one hit a lightning rod I placed at that hill. There are some lightnings out of the sky. Um, you guys can see that you have just one streak after the main boat comes down, except the ones at the sky because they don't hit anything, so they do not have that single line coming. So at top of those mountains, I have put in some lightning rods as well. And when things gets darker, it's like easier to see how fantastic is the flashing from coming from when a lightning bolt strikes. There is one light right above us, so that's why you can see sometimes the palm being hit by light. At first, I didn't like it and I removed it, but I saw, well, oh, we got too many rays right now. So the darker, more realistic it becomes. And if you guys don't like the flashing, just remove it. It's not that dramatic. And the rays cast is completely random. So um, not just in every place, it's randomized. So you have 8 types, 8 shapes. So plenty of, and you can see, and again it's darker, and it's like, oh, it's okay. That is some brightness come from the ray when it hits, but it's not uh, like enough to illuminate or so you can see the flashes um, coming from any place. You can see the palm is not receiving any light, no matter how much lightning bolts are appearing. You can't see the heel being illuminated by the lightning as well. So that's why I have introduced the flashing light thing. And how this is done, um, I have placed it here um, the blueprint here is identified by the clouds and the lightning bolt. And here, when you set the intensities, you can set different intensities for the lightning bolts. During daytime with fog, nighttime with fog, different intensities. So you can um, control how the scene will be illuminated. And you have the targets. In this case, the tall targets are like these things I have placed at the top. So, like this one, this one. I just use the coordinates, the location for sending uh, given to the rain seasons component. So we have in this case 5 tall targets. There are short targets. I have placed just 2. Uh, there are the ground targets. I have placed 4. So 4 rays you be struck here, and you can see these are the ground targets. So if I you can see here the light ground target 3. If I click here and I move, you can see the numbers messing around right there. So every time you hit add here, you hit over, you'd be spawned near the blueprint, so you can drag it to the place you want. And the sky targets, it's about the same. So you can drag them to the sky. Why there is a difference for the sky because the starting target, if the lighting bolt is too high, I use a completely different size when I am drawing it. There is a mesh where the lighting bolt is drawn, and as you can see, the intensities here are a bit higher because as they are far, you need a little bit more light so they can be seen. These are the vectors, okay? And basically, this is how we are at this moment regarding uh, our system for the lighting. So we have that amount of textures. You can see here, you can change the materials for the lighting. So for low altitude and the starting and ending shapes, high altitude and the starting and ending shapes, that is the array for the textures. So you can change those textures without needing to go to the materials, or you can use completely different ones. Um, you can see that the sizes, if you like the dimensions, you can see here 256 to 512, you'll be okay. Just need to be current to be realistic as possible. If you change that, they are very small textures, so the performance you hit is not coming from them, but comes from the light they emit. You'll see that for the particles, you just have four, one with flash and another with no flash for high altitude, and one with flash and another with no flash for low altitudes. Low altitudes, you can say how much is a low altitude, given this here. And as for the way to map this, I have made this rain blocker capture, and this blocker, you just have a render target you point, and I call it these rain blockers. Okay, so you can see rain blocker 1, 2, 3, and these rain blockers you just add it to this list, and when you hit capture, it will make a texture with just we have a camera up there, so you can see that I have selected, and it's showing the gizmo there because that is the where the blueprint is with the camera, and you make a capture just for those elements, and after that you just go to the rain mask here and you create a static texture uh, because it is the static texture that you need to use for the materials, because if you use the render target for the materials, it will not work. It will not work in several conditions, like if you're using a change in the screen percentage or the translucency screen percentage. You'll not block anything, so you start to see um, a water wetting the spaces where it should not, and see the droppings at the lake. So this is why you can't use this. Um, and right now we are still working on the sounds. I have stopped this because I have to shift my attention to other things. And we're still finishing the tornado settings and the uh, um, the evolution orchestrator. We have also finished the settings here, so I can't show it yet. But I think the progress is really good. I think you guys have enjoyed this, and I make a little surprise. It is I have talked a little bit about this earlier, that to make this asset progress a little bit more. Um, Not about the features, because I think the way you can customize things are great, but there is still something that I don't like. Even if you guys say, oh, but it is great already, it is the shapes you can see in the clouds. So the details here. We are just using for this cloud here um, 160 for density, um, and 256 for the Raymarsh steps. And even if I place 128, it's still nice. There is not much loss right there, but yeah, it bothers me that there is some of details, and to make this more performant, I need to go bring the clouds far at the horizon, and right now uh, just makes the performance go down a lot. And so I have looking at how we could um, change a little bit how these textures are and noises are generated. And there are improvements in the latest engine releases that make some things a little bit easier and helps a little bit with performance. And the performance seems to be just as a little low per pixel, but overall it is great because depending on the resolution you are using, the gains are far from perfect. So what I show you guys is completely still in work in progress. I don't have a time for this to come, but for sure I need to use at least the release 4.21 for this to happen. It is yes. This is what we are calling Cloudscape Seasons 2, and you see that these shapes are very close to what we were doing for the sky seasons. So see there is a motion here already for these clouds, and you see how the cauliflower shapes are very noticeable. Okay, and looking like at this position here, there is still some work to do regarding the edges, but at far it is great already. So we can keep this at far view and just work to remove this noise. This is like a jitter, this effect. So diminish this jitter here a little bit when you're up close, and let all the jitter for far. We are using a different size for the textures for far away, and if you guys see from the bottom, it's not bad at all. So it's looks really cool. So if you guys can see, I'm using here uh, 256 Raymarsh steps. Even if I go here to 128, the shapes are not that bad, at all. And hopefully, as soon we finish the all the changes, we start to integrate this. But it's still very work in progress. Um, it takes some time. Also from 128 to 256, there is no performance cost whatsoever because we have a special load for the distant parts. It costs us almost nothing to render. I use also less steps to draw what is far and more steps for what is near. So it's basically um, a way to win when you are increasing the max steps. Even if I go here 512, see, I think this is something that you guys will be really pleased to see. Of course, there are lots of advancements we did already in the Cloudscape seasons we want to bring here regarding the shadows. This is still very um, not very accurate, but whenever we bring, you really make these things be quite good. Okay, hope you guys have enjoyed this and stay tuned for more news soon. Thank you and bye bye.